Are you considering adding a tiny home to your property? In this video, Dylan Grace, the CEO of Florida Made Tiny Homes, joins me to discuss how to build small and what you need to know about doing this on your property. Hi, Dylan. How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you?
Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is one of my favorite topics. I love tiny homes. I actually have a tiny home here in Northeast Florida, which I use as an Airbnb, and it's so popular. And
Yeah,
also, I have clients that are interested in building something like this. So I thought you would be a good person to talk to today.
happy to do it. Yeah, I actually have one on my property as well that my mother-in-law lives in. So between you and me, we're the most common reasons people build one of these is for a family or for some additional income.
Absolutely. So I know people have heard of the term ADU and
hmm
tiny homes. Do you want to kind of define for us what it means really, and the types of, just so we all on the same page?
Sure. An ADU is kind of the technical municipal term called additional dwelling unit. A tiny home, a lot of times when people think of tiny homes, I think what they think of is kind of the little houses on wheels that, kind of look like a little house, but that you could move around and put in a mobile home park. An additional dwelling unit or a tiny home like we build them is actually built on site out of kind of like traditional building materials, usually to match your existing home. Most municipalities require you to do that. So, if you have a stucco home with a metal roof, you're going to have a stucco tiny home with a metal roof. And its purpose is to be lived in. That's why it's a dwelling unit. Typically, I'll say even sizes, typically the sizes that we're building, I mean, you can go down all the way to like, 250 square feet. We don't typically do that. And you can go all the way up to typically 1,000 square feet, depending on your municipality, the size of your home, all the different, like every regulation is different. So we always, when we meet with a potential customer, we always figure out their exact address and then do a little research onto exactly what they are allowed to do. As a for instance, I'm in Orange County in Orlando, and unincorporated Orange County, if you have a big enough yard and a big enough primary house, you could build up to a 1,500 square foot ADU, which is a whole nother home, basically. So all the rules and regulations are different everywhere you go all across Florida.
So how does somebody know if they have a property? How would you find out what you're allowed to do?
Yeah, well, that is a service that we offer for free in my company, but you can also call your local municipality and ask them. I mean, you can look it up online. If you look up Municode in most Municode, and then if you're in Palm Beach County or if you're in Pinellas County or Orange County, Municode, and then your county, you can usually find the rules and regulations, and then you just would search within that ADU or additional dwelling unit, and it will come up with here's all the different regulations that you have to go within to be able to build on your property. However, it can be kind of complicated. So, I mean, again, that's one of the main services we offer is to help people navigate this confusing and kind of strange process with the municipalities to know exactly what you are allowed to build. Because, I'll give, one, for instance, that most people would never think of, right, when they're thinking of doing this is, Winter Park is a part of Orlando. If you were to come to me in Winter Park and say, "Hey, I have a yard that's this big. This is my municipality. I'd like to build one," we would need to look up what is your impervious coverage, which is like how much water can actually soak into your yard. Because if you're above a certain threshold in Winter Park, even if you can build an ADU, you can't build an ADU because you would go beyond that threshold, or you can only build up to this certain size. And so it's like there's all these different factors that have to be factored into what exactly you are allowed to build, and it can sometimes be a puzzle. One of the main inspirations for this business for me to start this business was a lot of people want these, and it's so complicated that a lot of general contractors don't want to mess with it because it's they'll usually throw a pretty big number at it, like, "Hey, I'm willing to figure this out for this number, but I know that I'm going to have to do a lot of figuring it out." What my company has come in and said, "Okay, well, what if we could kind of figure it out at scale, where we can really get to know a lot of municipalities, get to know a lot of rules and regulations, have a team of people who do the research and figure stuff out, so that we can offer this product to customers who really want it at a good price too." And so that's what we've done is like we've really dug deep to figure this out because it's literally every municipality, every address, it's almost like beyond municipality. Every address has its own little equation that is what exactly you're allowed to build. And it's like that's our job is to help figure out that equation for you guys.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's such a great company idea, right? Were you getting a lot of inquiries? You were a contractor before for general housing, right? Were you getting a lot of inquiries and you just discovered that there's a trend here?
So it actually we talked with a family that we knew out in California who were contractors, and they were saying like they were just general contractors before, primary homes, spec homes, that kind of stuff. And they started getting a lot of requests for this, and they actually shifted their entire business model to like just servicing ADUs. And so it was really in talking with them that we got the idea of like, I think Florida is not far behind where California is, and the demand for this product is like exploding. And so we thought, well, what if we could figure it out at scale? Because that's a big issue. Is it can be confusing and difficult to figure out, especially if your primary business is this, and then you're just getting a few requests for this. It's not really worth it for a lot of GCs to figure it out. So
Yeah.
that's when we shifted to, well, let's figure this out at scale. Let's hire people who can do this. Our sales guys, we call them ADU experts. Their whole goal is to walk a customer through exactly what they are allowed to build on their property, help with financing, help with the whole process. So like we can put together a whole package where a customer goes, okay, I know what this is going to cost. I know what I'm allowed to build. And like I feel really informed to make a good decision, basically.
Yeah, you mentioned financing. That's interesting. Do you have a lender that you're working with, or how does that work for somebody who wants to do that?
Yeah, we have a few lenders that we work with. We can help, some people, I'd say a pretty small percentage of our customers have a relationship already with their local bank. And if they do, that really honestly is a great way to go. But a lot of people have never, so I would say our main funding source for most customers, if they're getting financing, is going to be getting a HELOC on their home. A lot of people
Okay.
have tons of equity in their home.
Yeah.
They have really, really like low rates, 2, 3%. They don't want to move, but they want to be able to unlock that equity to solve a problem for them, create more income, whatever it is. So we have some lenders that we use that have both statewide and nationwide footprints to help customers with that. We have a relationship with a company called Renify as well that has a unique product that's it's actually you can get a loan based on the future value of your home once you build an ADU. So even if you don't have a lot of equity, an ADU pretty dramatically can increase the value of your home. And so they take that into account when they do all the calculations for how much of a loan you can qualify for.
That's interesting. So, do they just have an appraiser that looks at that and looks at the idea
Hmm.
of it and then,
Yeah,
yeah.
they'll look at this is a product that they offer and they offer it nationwide. So they have a whole system where they're going to look at, the value of your home currently, how much equity you have in it, what ADU you're looking to build. Say you're looking to build a bigger one, like let's say a 750 square foot, 2-bedroom ADU. They're going to look at how much that will increase the value of your home, and they will add that future value to the overall value of your home before you get the loan. So it allows you to qualify for more of a HELOC to be able to unlock that to build your ADU. So that's we primarily use them when a customer needs that product. If they're like, hey, I don't have a ton of equity in my home, or I don't have enough equity in my home to fully cover this, but I really want one, we'll use Renify to help with that. And we have like a direct relationship with one of the guys over there at Renify.
Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of people not only want to unlock the equity, but also adding an ADU potentially as an income earning
Hmm.
unit, right? It could be an Airbnb like I have, and that could actually pay for your mortgage or the
Oh,
difference that you'll be paying with that HELOC, right?
absolutely. I'm sure you know how much earning potential an
Yeah.
ADU can or a short-term rental can have. And, so when customers can really see, like our goal is really to help customers make the best decision for them. So we're trying to give them the best information and the most information. Like, we also will flat up tell people if we don't think it's a good idea for them financially. We're not trying to just sell ADUs. We're like, hey, based on your situation, you probably shouldn't do this, or based on your situation, you can, and this is how you can do this. But a lot of times people can get really strong cash flow from either a short or long-term rental because they have so much equity and you can unlock it for relatively cheap, and then you can rent it for pretty high numbers. And
Hmm.
so it just ends up the math works really well for a lot of people.
Yeah. And then going back to the zoning, you don't necessarily need multifamily zoning. It's actually
Mm-mm.
allowable, right, as a residential property to add it. And,
Yep.
and you just check with the county, city, or whoever may be, making sure
Yep.
that that's allowed. Yeah.
Most municipalities do allow some version of this. There's very few that don't. We found some that just absolutely don't. Even those sometimes will allow a pool house or some variation of it, that you could use for a similar purpose. You're not really supposed to have it for like full-time living situation, though. That's really what a lot of those municipalities are trying to avoid with these. But there is legislation too that's nearly passed in Florida, and I think it's gonna come up again. We talk with local and state politicians as well. That is basically going to make a Florida-wide rule on ADU laws. So it basically will standardize it. It will override all local codes so that this is kind of the standard. California did this, 6, 7 years ago, and it like exploded ADUs in California once that passed.
Let's talk about the square footage. And then maybe you could go into how much it, generally costs to build something
Mhm.
like that.
So I would say probably our smaller size unit is going to be around 360 square feet. We have some that we've offered smaller, but for the most people, the if you can build it bigger, it's like the cost is not that much more to go for us to build it for you from like 250 to 360. So we're like, hey, you should build it as big as you can because, it's in construction, it's literally the same process as building a home. Everything is the same. You have to go through the same, each trade has to come out. So your price per square foot, if you do a really small one, is going to be pretty high versus if you do 1,000 square foot one, right? So like the cost benefit goes up the bigger you can build, basically. So our 360 is probably going to, start probably around 120-ish. And there's different costs based on do you need do you need a hurricane package because you live in a coastal wind zone that's just going to require you to put in that? It's going to be a slightly bigger cost. And it's going to go up to, I would say our average build cost is probably going to be around that 140, 150 zone based on what the customers are really looking for. Some people go really big, and we've built, big extravagant ones as well, that have been, over $200,000. So it's really based on what the customer is looking for, what they need, what's required in the municipality. Do you need a new septic? There's so many variations that go into this that, again, as part of the equation, we're really helping the customer figure out is all of those moving pieces. We basically say we want to get you from I want a tiny home to I have a tiny home with as little pain as possible because it can be an extremely complicated process. And we're trying to help pave the way for customers and give them a really good experience. Um, I would say probably our most popular size is going to be around 400 to 500 square feet. That if you think of it in a typical size, like if you have a two-car garage, typical two-car garage, that's going to be around 400, 450 square feet, depending on the size. So that can kind of give you an idea of what the size of this would be. I would say that 450, 500 is really the sweet spot for most people because it fits in almost every yard and it's surprisingly a lot of space. Our show unit here in Orlando is 450 square feet. Every time we invite people out to it, they're like so shocked at how big it feels. Um, and always like it's funny because in the build process, when you first pour the slab, right, the concrete slab, and it's 450 square feet, it looks like shockingly small. You're going to see this in your backyard and be like, this is what I ordered. And by the time it's done, people are always like, this came out way, way nicer and way bigger than I thought it would be. And it's like plenty big. And it's always that experience. So we always have to like coach people when we're building for them, like, hey, it's going to look small when you first pour the slab. And this is honestly true of any home. Like if you go to like a 1,800 square foot primary home and you go right when it's just the slab, you're kind of like, this is it? This is all that there is. But
Yeah.
then once the home is there, and typically another thing we really recommend for people is to do upgrade to higher ceilings. So our show unit has 9-foot ceilings as opposed to your kind of standard 8-foot ceilings. 9 foot ceilings, 450 square feet is like a really big space. It feels big. It feels everyone who goes there is like, oh, I could live in this.
Absolutely. I actually have your website up right now, and I'm going to share my screen so everyone can see the models that you have just
Yeah.
to get a sense visually of what we're actually talking about. So, this is, I'm here on ADU models. This is the website. So, if we look at all models, and Dylan, there are lots of use cases, right? I mean, some people just want an office, some people want a pool house.
We
Maybe
have
you want
kind
to
of a
talk.
flex model that we use for, we can change it out based on what the customer wants. Like if they want an office, if they want a pool house, if they want a man cave or a she shed or whatever you want to call it. We have kind of a flex model that's easy to reconfigure. And then we have a lot of these models that you're pulling up here that are different floor plans and different layouts. And I would say like I mentioned at the beginning of this call, our main customers are probably 80% of our customers are someone who is solving a family problem. So an aging parent or a child who couldn't otherwise afford housing, all kinds of different situations. That's probably our main customer. Our secondary customer, who will also get a lot of, and I think it's increasing as the laws become more and more favorable, are people like you, Mindy, and people that you're representing, which are investors. They're looking to maximize the investment of their property to bring in additional income. With that, we're even starting to design some standard units that are not even on the website yet that are our rental models. So the main goal with those are to maximize like efficiency of build and to maximize use for a rental. So we're designing like two or three specific models just for that based on, you know, hundreds and hundreds of conversations with customers of what they're actually looking for and changes they would make and just the real world situations we're trying to solve. So our goal is if we could get 5 or 6 standard units that are, our general units that cover 95% of what customers want, and we could get 2 or 3 rental units that cover what 95% of customers want. It allows us to be way more efficient, build these for cheaper, streamline the process. Everything gets faster. So that's really what we're working on our end a lot right now.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the investors. I mean, what are they asking for that's different from someone that wants to live in it?
I mean, typically, so imagine you're building this for your aging parent. You're usually going to build it way nicer than if you're just building it for,
Okay.
someone who's going to rent it. It's the difference a lot of contractors have, you know, in what is the end use of this, right? So if it's for rental, you're usually going to have the more economical options chosen. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to look nice. It doesn't mean you're not going to decorate it nice. It just means we see over and over again a lot of people who are building this for family end up doing all the bells and whistles of really nice cabinets, really nice countertops, really nice, bathrooms. They just end up going all the way, making it super, super nice. Whereas the rental route is really wanting nice, but they also are more concerned with like economical. They don't want this project to balloon out of control, and then it's going to take them a longer time to get a return on their investment. So those are kind of the two different paths that we're seeing.
Hmm. Absolutely. So on your website, we can see the models. What customizations are you allowing people to do, or do you have to buy exactly what this is?
So we're trying to move more and more to standard models. Now, all of these, as we update them, we're actually building them out right now. Some of these will change to be our standard models, so that what we've discovered basically is we can build these for cheaper and faster, pretty significantly if we can standardize it. And so we will still offer customization, but it's basically if you take a standard model and you cross a certain threshold, we're considering it standard. And we always just tell customers, hey, you know, this is going to cost you a lot more and it's going to take a lot longer. And we're happy to do it, right? Because we want you to get what you want. But that's just the reality of building. It's like if you go to a car dealership and you want a really nice Honda versus actually I want to cut the roof off, I want to put a bigger engine in it, I want different wheels. It's like, well, we can do that, but it's gonna
Yeah.
it's gonna dramatically change what the price is going to be. And so that's kind of how we look at these as well. So some of the I'd say standard upgrades that kind of customers will change that doesn't necessarily change to make it custom pricing is you can do different, all the different siding, the different roof options, the different flooring and cabinets, and like all that kind of choice kind of stuff, whatever you want and need, we can make that happen. We'll do kind of like 9 or 10 foot ceilings can kind of be a standard upgrade that doesn't change it to custom. You could change out, um, you know, a, a front door for a larger French door. There's different stuff like that. But once you start really getting into like structural changes, that's when it changes to custom. We can even add, we kind of are wanting to move more modular too in the future. So we
Mhm.
could add things like a front porch, that's just like a modular add-on that's just, hey, this is it's not changing the structure, but it's something you can add on and it doesn't make it custom. So those are the types of modifications and changes that customers can make without going full custom. Full custom is when a customer wants it to be, they found a plan online, they have some dream, a place for it to fit right in the corner of their yard, whatever that kind of stuff is, where it just needs to be a certain shape. That's where it gets into full custom. And it's a significant more money and it'll be significant more time to do it.
Yeah, because you've got to either yourselves or someone has to work with an architect or a draftsman to do the drawings, get them
Yep.
approved, go through the city or county or whatever in the whole process. But you've already done all of that work, I imagine, with the existing models that you have. It's just that these custom homes would be different, right?
Correct. I mean, architectural fees alone can be 5 grand, right? Like
Yeah.
architect and engineering fees
Yeah.
alone. So you're looking at almost an immediate increase in price by that. And then there's a lot of work on my team that goes into back and forth between the customer and the architect and getting things exactly right. And it can be a very time consuming process. Now, for the customers that's what they want or that's what they need, we're happy to do it.
Yeah.
But we're also trying to push more and more. For most customers, like we said, we're trying to design units that 95% of what they want can be covered in our standard units. So like it's so close to being exactly what they want that it doesn't even make sense for them to make those changes.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, with Airbnbs, and I know some of the big successful ones have very distinctive architecture, and
Hmm.
that they're attracting guests because when they have the exterior photo, it's like, oh, I want to stay there, you know?
Hmm.
So it's kind of like what you have on the custom page on here, just something a little bit different. So that's kind of a trend that some investors, if they really want to get into this business, they're building something, maybe they're building like a tiny home village, right?
Hmm.
And they want to do short-term rentals. I mean, maybe that could be a way
Oh,
of
for a
doing it.
village, like we can go full custom. We're talking down in like Lake Okeechobee about doing one of these, and we've designed like bungalows for that are completely custom, modern looking, but we're going to do 60 of them, right? So it's
Yeah.
like that's a totally different story about custom. The other thing I would consider for people who are like you considering about putting one of these in their yard, almost always you have to match your existing structure in your municipality. So if your
Okay.
existing structure was a
Okay.
log cabin, your ADU cannot be a modern glass looking slant roof structure. It will not be allowed.
Oh, okay.
So
Right.
that's a consideration. Like if you have you're on the coast, if you kind of have like a Florida beach bungalow look,
Yeah.
generally it's going to have to look architecturally, it's going to have to look the same. If it was some Spanish style home, it's going to have to look similar. Now, not exactly. It doesn't have to be exact, but it has to be in kind, right? So we would not be able to come in and submit a modern glass walled looking building if that's not what the primary house looks like at all. So that's something to consider for people as well, especially if you're considering for Airbnb. A lot of your, a lot of your appeal too is your location, right? If y'all are near the beach, it's like
Yeah,
people
I'm
want to
in St.
come.
Augustine, but I talk to a lot of people around Florida too that want these,
Hmm.
and I guess there are sort of certain specifications that you have to follow to build in Florida, given that we do have hurricanes, right?
Yep.
Can you talk maybe a little bit about that so that people feel like, they understand what you're doing that's different from other states?
Yeah. Well, our standard is to build out of block. So all of our builds are designed and priced to build out of block. I think it's just better in Florida. We have, wood rot, we have bugs, we have termites, we have hurricanes, we have water, we have all the things that building out of block is just better. And so that's our standard to do it out of that. And then there's certain coastal zones that require us to do, we just have what's the hurricane for our standard units, as a for instance, we would have the hurricane package that we could just click a button for our sales guys. It's going to add whatever the costs will be for the hurricane package. That's going to be hurricane impact windows. It's going to be some different kind of strapping for the roof. It's going to be certain things that are just required, and we automatically will add that. Well, if you want to do that anywhere in Florida, we can also add that. It's just not required, and it's going to be more expensive. So we build all of ours up to the municipal requirements of the actual zone that you're in, or whatever the customer wants. And so sometimes we'll go above and beyond. The main thing we talk with customers a lot is, they're getting ads for, prefab things from Amazon and container homes and all this kind of stuff. And it's like the main issue you're going to have in Florida is a lot of places you're not going to be allowed to do that at all. You won't be able to get it permitted to be there. And we've just seen over and over again, we've had customers come to us who their neighbor had one or they had one. They just don't last. Those prefab ones do not last in Florida at all. You're going to get 5 years out of it, and you're going to start seeing it really, really start to run down. It's not going to increase your home value. So this is the kind of education we like to do with customers a lot is if you build it right, if you get it permitted correctly, you build it up to the standard of your home, it beyond the short-term income of like cash flow, it is going to increase your home value and probably pretty significantly. So whenever you go to sell your home down the road, it's going to be a major asset. I mean, I'm sure that you're aware, we talk to realtors all the time here in Central Florida and across Florida. Anytime there is a home that has a multi-generational living option on it, it is like a line around the block for people to buy. They're very, very popular and appealing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. We see on Instagram all the time these, or even Facebook Marketplace, right? The tiny homes for sale, and some of them are these prefab companies, and it's tempting, right? Because they're cheap. They're like,
Mhm.
they're selling these things starting at 60,000 or whatever, right? 80 to 100. Um, do you want to just speak to that a little bit more, specifically about stick built versus bringing something in remotely,
A lot
and
of what
delivering, getting it delivered?
a lot of what people don't realize is that once you bake in all the costs that you don't see, our pricing is going to be very similar at the end of the day. Ours will be more expensive, but not dramatically at all, because you're going to have to get a foundation pour. You're going to have to get plumbing and electric put out there. You're going to have to figure out some kind of sewer or septic situation. You're going to have to do all these things anyways, even for the prefab stuff. That's not included in that price you see online. And so they're going to crane this thing in for $60,000, and you're going to have another $40,000 worth of investment go into this thing just to get it so that it can work. And then it's not built to last. And you're going to, I think at the end of the day, be pretty upset with the investment that you've had long term. So that's what we try to tell customers. These are built, ours are built out of block. They're going to match your home. They're going to look like it's always been here. And you're going to, even if you just use it for family and you don't make any money off of it, you'll get all your money back when you go to sell this thing one day. All of that, it's going to be a return on investment because your home value is going to have increased, and you're going to either solve a problem or have an investment that you can actually cash flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I just have a lot of questions on that specific
Sure.
topic.
Yeah, fire away.
Yeah. Well, can you talk a little bit about multifamily? And we did touch on tiny home villages. It's something that I'm really interested in doing. If any investors are listening and they are interested in partnering on something like that. But we hear a lot, especially I'm in St. Johns County, Florida. We hear a lot about low income housing. Have you had any experience doing villages where it would be like 8 different units, something like that?
Yes. So we've had, I mean, we probably have 5 people right now that we're pretty deep into talks with about doing this exact type of project. A lot of it at the end of the day comes down to, can we make the math? Can we, there's development costs that go into, we kind of describe it in the construction world as there's the horizontal and the vertical. Horizontal construction is putting in roads and sewers and sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. The vertical is actually building the homes. We do the vertical, right? We are home builders. That's what we do. And so in order to make the math work for tiny homes, it's difficult to develop raw land with all the horizontal in a way that you can also build a tiny home and you can also sell it to a customer and still make all those numbers work. So that's the kind of stuff that we're figuring out. I, me personally, I think a really cool opportunity, and it's something I've been looking into for a year and a half now, is finding a mobile home park that already has the majority of that horizontal done and then converting it to a tiny home village and making amenities and, playgrounds and dog parks or whatever you want to do to just make it really cool, make it a community. But then you could have, 750 square foot units that are all throughout a former mobile home park. And then I think the math really works. And it's finding that right opportunity. Think how many mobile home parks there are in Florida. There's so many mobile home parks in Florida. Some of them are really run down. Some of them are all but abandoned. And so it's just finding the right opportunity where, you know, that piece of property really works. And we can then come in and do all of the building and actually make this a reality. We even have the ability to sell, so like what we've been talking about with people who own mobile home parks is like we can basically make a little, Lennar Homes junior setup where we build a show unit. We have our salespeople go meet customers out there and actually sell different phases of this construction. So if you have a big mobile home park and say we could build 70 units or something on it, right? Well, we could do phase one is 20 units and we're going to build a showroom. We're going to show it. We're going to sell 20 units. They're going to use that to fund the next 20 units and the next 20 units. And eventually you just have this whole thing built out. So that's something I've thought a lot about and, had many, many, many conversations over the years about how we could actually make this work. I know of one place in Cocoa that's sort of doing it, and I actually visited it and talked with the people who are doing it down there. They've converted a mobile home park, but um, it's kind of like patched together. There's still some mobile homes. There's some tiny homes on wheels. There's some tiny homes like we would build. There's some prefab tiny homes. It's kind of like
Yeah.
this like mix match of all kinds of stuff.
Hodgepodge. Yeah.
I think if you made it actually like a planned development, it would be really, really cool. And I think as a just imagine like an entry level home option for young people who are they can't afford a you know $500,000 entry level home, but they could afford one of these, and it actually gets them to start getting equity. They get their own place. 750,000 square feet, somewhere in that range would be plenty for either a young couple or even a single person who's just looking for their own spot.
Yeah. So how would that work? I'm just curious on in terms of selling it. You wouldn't be able to subdivide a mobile home park, right? Because
Mhm.
that's a one entity. So would it be like a condo and they're buying the kind of the interior and then there's another holding company that deals with the actual land and maintenance?
That's how it's set up in Cocoa. I don't
Okay.
really know. Like people are trying to figure this out right now, right? So
Yeah.
in the Cocoa, yeah, it's like a land condo or something is what it's called.
Hmm.
And that is the setup. So you're buying a home that has this piece of property. I think there's potential to get things subdivided though down the road where you actually have your own individual piece of land that you just own and maintain that piece of land. Um, and I think converting the mobile home parks is the way to go again because that horizontal is already done. It just has to be the land use part of it has to be converted and then subdivided and I'm sure you can imagine the municipal headache that it would be to accomplish that. But I think it's
100%.
possible
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's so much of a desire for this right now. And honestly, politicians are under pressure. They're feeling like their constituents are saying, hey, we're getting priced out of the place we've always lived. We can't afford to ever think of buying a home. Well, in the 1950s, your standard home size was like under 1,000 square feet. That was your normal entry level home. There's nothing being built right now that's that. That's considered a tiny home now. A 950 square feet is a tiny home, right? So I think there's a wide open lane if we can make the numbers work. I know of investors who want to do this, who are like have money, have the banks saying yes, we're trying to figure all the things out. Massive demand. If you could create a product where customers could actually afford an entry level home, think of the amount of people who would want to jump on that right now.
100%, 100%. I'm with you. And if anyone's listening and wants to talk about a village and you want to invest in something like that, definitely talk to me because I'm looking at building a group of investors that would do just that.
Mhm.
But
And call us and we'll be happy
it's
to build it for you.
intimidating with the imagining talking to the county about it, but with someone like you that could really support and you've got the experience, proven track record, right, of building these small homes. that could really be an advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd be
Yeah.
happy to talk with anyone as well. Like you know, we're we're trying to figure this out because I think there's a massive opportunity. And it's really going to take, I would say, municipalities kind of getting behind it and
Yeah.
opening up the regulations to make it possible. But there's serious talks about it. Like I've met with my local congressman a couple weeks ago and had them out to our ADU show unit, and they're very serious about affordable housing and what we can do to help um,
Yeah.
ease this issue. So it's on their radar big time.
The other way to think about this is, buying small lots and putting small houses on them or on one, right? And maybe selling it in this area, kind of you would sell it for, I don't know, 250,000 or under 300,000, definitely, I would say, for this kind of
Mhm.
thing. Is there what's the smallest tiny home that could be built? Because
On
is there a
as a
rule?
primary home,
Yeah, as a primary, and it's not really an ADU because there's no other structure.
it's different from municipality to municipality as far as what's the smallest primary allowed, but I would say it's probably around 750 square feet usually.
Mhm.
I would say your sweet spot though, if you're going to go that route, because again, all the land development, all the infrastructure, all the building process is going to be the same for 750 versus 1,000 square feet. I think that 1,000 square feet, or maybe even 1,200 square feet, is probably going to be your sweet spot for that entry level home size that you could build economically and still have some profits to be made to make it worthwhile for like because what you're talking about is essentially more of a spec home build where an investor would be building it and then selling it to the customer. Or a customer has a piece of
Yeah.
land and they want to build it and get a construction loan to build it. We do that as well. We work with customers to acquire a piece of land, get a construction loan, and build a primary.
Yeah. And that's great. Well, you've covered a lot of my questions today. What about things like decisions that they need to make, like air conditioning? Is that like a mini split that you use, or what kind of AC that do they usually have?
Yeah, we almost always do mini splits. They are plenty for the small space that we use. That's basically you have like a head unit in every single living space. You'll have one in the bedroom. If you had two bedrooms, you'll have one in each bedroom and you'll have one in the living room. They're plenty. They're super efficient. You can cool each room differently, which is great. Um, I I love them. I think they're awesome. We can also do a traditional like, ducted air AC unit if that's what the customer wants, but we just recommend, man, these mini splits are more affordable. They are work really, really well, and they're plenty to cool or heat a space.
Yeah, I put a mini split in my tiny home last year, one of the
Mhm.
Mitsubishi ones, and it's excellent. It's
They're
just
great.
worth it. For Florida, it's one of those things, especially as a rental, you have to have really good AC that's
Yep.
reliable, you know.
And
So,
they can get it cold. Like if a customer's like, I want it to be cold, it is not a problem for that thing to turn it into a refrigerator.
yeah. I noticed that all of your units are single story. Are there any plans to do two-story homes or not?
Yeah, so we have before. We have one unit that we offer. There's actually we started offering because there's something in Orange County called Ready Set Orange that's like master plans that the municipality has already approved to be built, right? So then they're tiny home plans. So one of those is a garage downstairs with the unit on top of it. So it's like a 500 square foot unit on top and then a two-car garage downstairs. That's one that we offer and a lot of customers really like um, to have on their property. But yeah, we can do two-story, no problem.
Okay. Okay, cool. What is the normal build time that people should expect?
So we normally, every municipality is so different that it's really hard to give specifics. We normally say build time is like 5 to 8 months once we get the plans back from the municipality and we're able to start building. 5 to 8 months is the build time. The getting to that point of the getting the plans in your hands is such a wildly different number that it's hard to tell customers, right? It's like if you pick a standard unit, it's going to be faster. If your municipality is easy to work with, it's going to be faster. We've seen permitting take 6 weeks. We've seen permitting take 6 months. That's the varying range based on municipality to municipality. Some municipalities they're going to give you the biggest headache possible to get it through, but ultimately we'll get it through. Some municipalities have the road paved for you and it sails right on through and it's wonderful. So there's such a variation for that first part that we try to, if it's a new municipality we haven't worked much in, we don't really know exactly what to tell customers. We can just tell them, hey, this is based on our experience in, areas around you. We started in Orlando, so we know Orange County and City of Orlando and those places pretty well. We can give pretty accurate estimates as far as how quickly things are going to sail through. But we're building all over Florida now. I mean, we have down in West Palm Beach, over in Fort Myers, Naples, St. Pete, Tampa, up in Jacksonville, all over the place. So,
Yeah.
We are able to build all over the place now, and we're expanding and going into new areas. We typically would say from the time you sign a contract to the time your ADU is done is going to be, a year to maybe 14 months. And that's most of that variation is dealing with the municipality to get permitted plans. When we are allowed to build, it's 5 to 8 months. We give that variation too because it's Florida. There's hurricanes. There's inspectors that are sticklers. There's, people get sick. Like construction is like herding cats, right? And
Yeah.
so there's so many variables that go into construction that we have to just give a range of this is what it could be.
Do you bring in a crew each time from Orlando to the location, or do you
We
hire
have
local
crews.
subs?
No, we have crews in different locations. Yeah. So we have
Okay.
Orlando crews for Orlando locations. We have, different crews for different spots.
Yeah, that's great. What about other states, just in case people are thinking if they're in Georgia or Carolinas, do you ever
Yeah.
do other states?
We have not yet, but I mean, it's on our radar. Like we really want to get things, our systems and our processes and everything built out really, really well in Florida before we try to tackle a whole nother state. But I mean, we're certainly thinking about it. I think there's opportunities. We'd probably more target specific like metro areas in other states that we think this could be a really good product and then kind of build out the systems there because there's demand nationwide for this. And I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. And we're starting to see how it can be successful for us and successful for our customers. So it makes it exciting to expand.
Yeah. Do you know if there are any tax advantages or any incentives in order to build like an ADU on your property? Like, is there anything that is another positive reason people should do it?
I mean, less advantages, more sometimes you'll get a break. Like so for Orange County, right? They have waived impact fees. Impact fees are taxes that you have to pay on new construction for living, right? For ADUs, they've waived impact fees or they've significantly reduced them. So instead of Seminole County, it can be $10,000 for impact fees. Orange County, it's either waived or it's like $2,000, right? It's significantly lower because they want more people to be building these. So it's looking into your local municipalities, and we'll do that for you. We'll help you see what your local impact fees will likely be for this thing. But there aren't necessarily like incentives, based on just the fact that you're providing more housing yet. I hope we get there. I think if they start, I mean, literally talking with the local politicians, those are ideas that they're throwing around of like, how can we incentivize people to do this um, with different tax structures? So it's being talked about at the highest levels. I don't know of anything that's like officially out there right now, though.
Yeah, that's good to know. Well, my last question as we wrap up is really kind of what are the mistakes that people make when they're building these that you come across and you have to kind of, I guess, correct them or the misconceptions?
Yeah, I think a big one is, I mean, not all prefab is bad. We don't do prefab, so we like to warn customers about it. But there's a lot of prefab that's just not good and it's not going to last. And we've had seen some people really upset with the end product of what they've ended up getting. Um, I think another big one is just be careful in choosing your builder. We have come in to help people who have chosen the wrong builder, and I mean that's the other reason why I started this business was the construction industry in Florida is wild. And there's a lot of not integrous people, let's say, in the industry that just take advantage of people and don't do right by people. And that is going to be the biggest headache most people experience is you pick the wrong builder, um, and you're locked into a contractual relationship with them, and it's just a total nightmare. I've heard way too many stories of that where people have lost tens of thousands of dollars picking the wrong builder. So do your due diligence. Be careful when you pick a builder. If it's not us, hey, good on you. Get your ADU built. But just be careful in building and who you actually choose to build your ADU, because that's going to be a relationship that you're in for a year. And so you better like the relationship that you
Yeah.
choose.
Yeah, it seems you've mentioned today it's such a specific thing that not all builders want to touch it. It's just a different thing, and it's also a unique size design as well. So you already have a lot of models
Yeah.
that people can choose from. Anything else that you would like to kind of end with to share with our investors? What your thoughts are?
Yeah, I think it's in a really exciting thing. I actually have, like I said, a garage above the garage unit on my property that was just here when I bought the place. It wasn't even one that I built. I'm actually looking to build. I'm going to probably connect this one because mine is not technically an ADU based on how it was built. So I have a pretty large property, so I can build another one. And I'm going to build probably 1,000 square foot full on one here. I think it's just a really exciting product. When people actually see them, it makes a big difference. So one thing I would encourage, follow us on social media, reach out to us, like even you can talk to, you know, connect with us via our website or call us or whatever, and like ask all your questions to our ADU experts. But we also do open houses somewhat regularly in Orlando if you want to actually come see one. And getting to see one makes all the difference. We found customers who are like, oh, I didn't expect it to be this nice or to feel this big or any of that kind of stuff. Come see one, because that really does move the needle the most of anything else with people. You don't really know what it is. It's hard to imagine. It's like people are like, what is 450 square feet? And you're like, the closest most people can get is like if you've gone to IKEA and you've seen like the little rooms they
Yeah.
have set up at IKEA,
Uh-huh.
you're kind of like, okay, well, this is sort of that. But coming and seeing one in a backyard is the best. So I would encourage people, just follow us. Whenever we have one, we're posting on social media, um, and come out and check it out.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Dylan. I mean, it's really
Sure.
great. I love this topic. It's one of my favorite topics. And I think you're right. It's a movement. We're just getting started, you know?
Yep. I
Yeah.
think it's going to explode in Florida. I think it already is, and I think it's going to get wild here in the next 5 or 10 years. That's our expectation, anyways.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm going to put all your details in the show notes below. If anyone wants to get in touch with Dylan, definitely do it. Go to Orlando, see the model home. I mean, this is a great opportunity. So,
Yep.
yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks, Mindy. This is fun.
Thanks so much for joining me today. If you got something out of this video, I would love it if you could like the video and subscribe to my channel. If you want to connect with Dylan, I have his information in the show notes below. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, I would love to connect with you there at Invest with Mindy. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.